Hi everyone, and welcome to our video tutorial for this ladybird cat sweater that you can see Melba wearing here. So we hope you enjoy this tutorial. Please like, share and subscribe, and we hope to see you soon. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so to make this ladybird sweater you'll need yarn, probably in black and a corresponding or a contrasting colour. I've made this previously in the kind of typical red and black with black spots. So, but you can, today I'm going to make a yellow version. You don't have to make this as a ladybird. You can make this sweater in just one color. There's lots of variations possible, but I'm choosing these black and yellow. This one here is an acrylic wool blend, and it's actually got a little sheen through it as well, which is kind of cute for a ladybird, and it's probably about a 4 weight. Also about a 4 weight, and this yellow is an acrylic. I'm actually going to double strand both of them. So you can choose a finer weight yarn, you can choose a heavier weight yarn, entirely up to you what you want to do with this sweater. If you want the two-tone look, obviously you'll need 2 different colors. You'll need a crochet hook that corresponds to your yarn, and I'm going with a 5mm today. You'll need buttons, so you'll need at least 2. You'll need one for the neckband, one for the rib band. On my previous sweater, which I'll show you in a moment, I've used 2 buttons per band, but today I'm going to use just one larger button. You'll need some scissors. You'll need a darning needle to weave in your ends, and potentially a smaller needle for sewing on your buttons and maybe sewing on the spots, but you might want to use your larger one for sewing on the spots. You might need 2 different size needles is the point. And of course a tape measure. Now I'll add a card to link to my video where it just shows you the measurements to take to size sweaters. So check that out, and the more measurements you have the better is pretty much the rule. If you can try the sweater on your cat as you move along, then that's ideal. Otherwise, take all those measurements that are indicated in the video, which, like I said, I'll link to, and I'll also link in the description box below. That's pretty much it. Neck circumference and rib circumference are the 2 main ones, but a measurement down from the neck to where you want the sweater to fall. And, like I said, as many measurements as you can. Perhaps one across the shoulder blades would be a good idea as well. But check out that video, and that will show you where to measure. Okay, so to make these little ladybird sweaters, you'll need to know how to make a magic ring, how to half double crochet increase, half double crochet decrease. We'll do a single crochet in just the area where we make the buttonhole. You'll need to know how to change colour. So we're going to be changing colour to make this central band here. It's a little bit fiddly down at the base where we'll start. So we start down at the base and work our way up towards the neck. A little bit fiddly as you get started down here, but once you get going, it's pretty easy. We'll be making these spots. So these are just half double crochet increase in the round, and from there sewing on a button. And I'm assuming that you understand these basic techniques: sewing on a button, weaving in your ends, and just neatly finishing off your project. Sewing on these spots, and that's pretty much it. So it's a fun tutorial. It's practical. Keep your cat warm, but also we've got this fun little little motif of ladybird. So I think that's all we need to talk about as far as, you'll tie on your yarn at one point. And I'll show you how to do that anyway. So let's get started. Okay, so take your colour 1 and you're going to make a magic ring. So just a reminder, if you're unsure about some of these basic techniques, then just brush up on a YouTube video, or, just brush up on those basic techniques before you get started. So you've made your magic ring. Now, it's a little bit fiddly down at these first few rows, okay? So just bear with me and follow along as best you can. So we're going to chain 1. So why it's a little bit fiddly is we need to be changing colours. So we're going to insert 5 half double crochet in the ring, but we're going to change colour on the third, for the third. And why we do that is to add this centre line here. That gives the, the effect of the ladybird. So this line is optional. If you're having too much trouble with it, then you don't have to add this line. If you want to just make a basic sweater that's not a ladybird, you don't have to add that line, okay? You can just make it all one colour, okay? So that's up to you. But just persevere for these first few rows, and the effect's really worth it. It's just a little bit fiddly at the beginning. Okay, so just try to keep your tail sort of out of the way, okay? So it's going to get a little bit messy in here with tails, especially because I'm double stranding, okay? But I'm going to try to be as clear as I can. So you're going to make your first half double crochet into your ring, okay? And on this second half double crochet, we're going to start with our colour 1, pull up a loop. And then we're going to get our colour 2, so just keep all your tails out of the way. Take your colour 2, place it over your hook, and you're going to finish that half double crochet with your colour 2. Okay? Now you might just need to pull on your tails a little bit just to keep that loop. Don't close your ring, obviously, but just to keep those loops sort of tightish. Now keep your black tails out of the way and your yellow tails out of the way. Now we're going to start our next half double crochet, so keep those out of the way, with the black. Now what you want to do is make sure you're keeping the black to the front, okay? So keep this strand to the front, and then you're going to finish off this third half double crochet with your colour 1, okay? So once again, make sure all those tails are out the way, but just keep the black to the front. See, I've brought the black over into the front. Now we're going to finish off our last 2 half double crochets in colour 1. Oops. So this is the 5th one here. And that's your row 1, okay? Now you can pull on your colour 1 tail and close up your ring. Just keep those strands to the front, the back strand to the front, your colour 2 strand to the front. Now pull everything nice and tight in there, so you've got no loose loops. So that's the start of, and you can, as we move along, you can tighten this ring even more. But let's move on to row 2. So we're going to chain 1 and turn. So this is where we're going to start increasing, okay? So you get to manage your own increases and decreases eventually. So what we're going to do, so we're starting down at the base, as I've mentioned, and we're going to increase along the edges here. Now you can increase more quickly or more slowly depending on how you want this sweater to fit. So I'm going to increase in the first and last stitches of each row. So I'm going to place 2 half double crochets in the first and last stitch. You can increase only at one end of the row, so you could increase at the beginning of the row or the end of the row, or you could increase every second row if you don't want this to increase, super quickly. It's entirely up to you how you manage your increase. But I'm going to increase at the beginning and end of each row. Okay, so you've chained 1 and you've turned. So I'm going to place my 2 half double crochets in that first stitch. So to start my increases. In the second stitch, I'm going to start my half double crochet with my colour 1 and then take my colour 2 and finish off with my colour 2. I'm going to start my next stitch with my colour 2 and finish it. Now make sure you're leaving the colour 2 at the front, okay, because you want it at the back when you turn for your next row, and then finish off with your colour 1. And then the last 3 stitches, so the next stitch is a half double crochet in that stitch. The next one is 2 half double crochets. So the last, oops, left behind a strand. The last stitch for me, I'm increasing, so I'm going to place 2 half double crochets in that last stitch. Okay, now it'll start to, my ring is just loosening up a little bit, but you can just keep pulling that closed. Pull on your tail ends, chain 1 and turn. Just pull that tight again. Just pull on my strand. So you just want to, you want to keep a relatively good amount of tension on the strands. As I see, I've got one strand that's kind of come out there, but that's okay. It'll just look a little bit messy to start with, but then you'll start to get a nice looking row through the center. Okay, so I'm going to increase again. So I've chained 1 and turn. I'm going to increase at the beginning of the row. Then in the next stitch, half double crochet. Just a bit more yarn. Now, the stitch before where the band sits, I'm going to start with my colour 1, finish it off with my colour 2, start my next stitch with my colour 2, finish it off with my colour 1. Okay, now remember to bring this to the front and finish off your row with your colour 1. So I've got 2 half double crochets. Oh, once again left the strand behind. 2 half double crochets to the last stitch, and then in the last stitch 2 half double crochets in the same stitch. Okay, so you can kind of see how this is going to go. So we're going to keep increasing however you're choosing to increase. So you can adjust these increases entirely to your needs, to your aesthetic, to the size of your cat. So you can you could increase. You've got like multiple options of how to increase. You could increase in the 2 rows, and then in the 3rd row you don't increase. You can, like I said, increase every row, increase just at one end of every row. You can increase every 2nd row. Lots of different options, and you can adjust it as you go. Okay, so I've chained 1, I'll turn. So we'll just do 1 more row together. So my first one I'm increasing. And then I've got 2 stitches until I get to the stitch just before the colour change. So you want to be changing in that stitch just before the colour change. So pull your colour 2 through. Start your next stitch with your colour 2. Bring it to the front and then finish with your colour 1. Okay, so your yarn's always ready at the back for the next row. So that's just the thing you've got to remember. you've got to remember to do. And then in my last stitch, I'm increasing. Okay, so you can see how that's starting to form. And once again, I'll just pull on with that tail end. You might just need to keep pulling on that ring to close it up. So you'll notice you've have one side that's probably you will end up seeing that there's probably a front and a back. For me, I think this is probably going to be my back, and this will be my front here. Okay, so you'll keep moving along however you're increasing. So I'm going to keep doing this until, so you will be increasing until we want to create our near to where our rib band is going to fall, so just behind the front legs. Okay, then we're going to just flatten it out for a little bit, just no increases or decreases, and then eventually we're going to start to decrease up to the neckband. Okay, depending on your cat's individual measurements. So go ahead and continue with your increases, just keeping in mind how long you want your sweater to be, and how many rows you're going to need to get to the rib band just behind the back, just behind the front legs. Okay, so keep increasing. I'm going to do the same for a few rows, and I'll be back shortly. Just to mention, the other thing that will help you decide how quickly you increase is how long you want the sweater for sure, but also how much you want it to wrap around the sides. So just keep that in mind as well. You might want a measurement across the back to work out how much you want it to wrap around the sides. Hopefully that makes sense. So this is where the front legs are, and as we work down the back, you want to work out how much you want it to wrap around your cat. Okay, so that might influence how quickly or how slowly you want to increase or decrease. And also just a reminder to keep an eye on your yarn balls and just make sure you're not getting them all tangled up. You might need to stop and untangle them every couple of rows. So just a reminder for that as well. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, so I just wanted to check in with you. I've just done a few more rows there so you can see how this is going. Now, yeah, I just wanted to mention you will be able to see your colour 1 in amongst the colour 2 line, and that's just really normal, okay? But the overall effect, so you can see it on the red. It's not quite as pronounced, but you kind of get this little sort of zigzag pattern, but the overall effect makes it look like a band eventually. Okay, so don't worry about these bits that you can see through. Eventually it will, it gives the impression of a line eventually. So what you can also make sure that you're doing is to make sure you're pulling your color 1 nice and tight. Okay, so just around that color change, just to avoid any loose sort of strands. Okay, so I just wanted to check in with you and show you where I'm at. And so I'm going to continue for a few more rows, and I'll catch you shortly. Okay, so I've done a few more rows, and I still want to go a little bit further with my increases, but I just wanted to hop in and remind you that you can start to flatten this out however, or whenever you want to. So as you know, we're working up towards the rib band, so you can start to increase quite rapidly, and then you can start to slow down your increases if you feel like it's wide enough. Okay, it's let me show you on this last one. So you can here. So you can just keep increasing, and then you can kind of start to slow it down a little bit if you're feeling like you've got, wrapping over your cat's back, you've got enough width. So yeah, that's entirely up to you to work out. I'm still going to increase a bit further because I'm actually going to make this one a little bit larger than this one. This one fits Melba, but I want to make a larger version for another cat. So yeah, I'm going to go a little bit longer. And also just keep in mind, it always looks like it's wider, but these these will eventually, as you add your rows, you've probably realized already, it looks like you're increasing really rapidly, but actually these rows will always get pulled in, okay? They don't sort of stay like that. Okay, so yeah, judge those increases for yourself. If you want to start just increasing, like, so you've increased more rapidly, you want to start to slow down your increases, you know, just do one at the beginning of the row, or one just at the end of the row, and then continue and, you know, just increase a bit more slowly. That's definitely an option. So you can, you know, once again, you can tailor this to your aesthetics, to your cat size. So I'm going to continue with my increases for a few more rows, and I'll see you shortly. Okay, so I'm at where I want to start to create my rib band. So what I've done is, you can see here, perhaps, see how it's increased quite rapidly, and there's just this flattening out area where I've just, or it started to flatten out anyway, where I've added just an increase at the beginning of each row. But now what I'm going to do is so it's a good idea just to check which is your front side and which is your back side. So for me, that's my back. It's a little bit messier. So this is going to be my front. And I'm going to start to chain for my belly band on the right hand side of the sweater. Now that doesn't matter. You just want to, just thinking ahead a little, not that, you know, it matters too much at this point, but you probably want both of your bands on the same side, just for aesthetic's sake. But, you know, it doesn't matter ultimately if they're on different sides, but just for aesthetics, it does look better if they're on the same side. And you also want to think about how wide it's going to be. So that's going to depend on your button, how big your button is, and how wide you want your band. Okay, so you don't want it to be too wide, but also not too narrow. Okay, for me, this one here is 5 rows wide. And I'm probably going to do the same. So it's a chain, do a row, come back, and then we'll work all the way back over this other side, come back, work across here. Okay, and then we'll, you know, create the band as wide as we want it to be. So for me, that's about 5 rows. So I'm going to start to chain for my belly band. And like I told you before, I want my let me just undo that one chain there. So I want my width across here to be for about a 40 centimeter rib circumference. So measuring once again how much I've got 32 centimeters here, so I need another 10 centimeters of chain of band. So I'll make it 10 centimeters plus just a little bit extra. So I'm allowing 2 centimeters extra for a 40 centimeter circumference. And that's arbitrary. You can, it depends, it just will overlap on the other side. So it doesn't matter if you do a little bit more or a little bit less. But obviously you don't want it to be too small. You want it to be, more on the slightly larger side. So I'm going to chain to about, let's say, another 12 centimeters on top of this width that I've already got across my sweater. So just keep chaining. So you better, like I said, you're better to go on the slightly larger side and just overlap it a little bit more on the, when you sew on your button on the other side. So let's see what I've got there. So there's no set number of chains, it's just however many chains you need to get to the width you want. Let's flatten that out. So it's completely off camera. So yeah, I've got about 45 there. It might be just slightly too big, but just remember that your chain, as you add the stitches, the chain will decrease. So actually, let's run with that. I think that's probably going to be okay. So I'm just going to turn my work. And then I'm going to start from the second chain from the hook. I'm going to start adding my half double crochets. So what you can do is you can either just work into the front of the chain if you want to, or you can work into this little bump at the back, what I call the third loop. Okay, so it's up to you. I'm going to work into the third loop, just so the two sides of my belly band, my rib band, are symmetrical. See, just to see how it looks like it makes it look like it's a stitch on this other side, rather than just working into the chain. So that's what I'm going to do, but that's entirely optional. You can just work in front to the front of the chain. It won't, won't make a massive difference. So I'm going to work my half double crochets along the length of the chain, and then I'm going to continue across, and I'm not going to increase or decrease while I'm creating my belly band. So that's what you also need to keep in mind, is how wide your belly band is compared to how long you need it to be without any increases, if that makes sense. Let me just show you on the other one. So for the whole width of the belly band, you could start to decrease here, but which I have done actually on this one, but you can you kind of want it to flatten out across here, okay, and on the other side, so it's kind of flat across here. Okay, so you're aiming for most of your belly band to be kind of a flat area, or most of the width of the belly band. Actually, let me just give you an idea of how wide my belly band is with 5 rows. It's just under 5 centimeters. So I'm going to have on the other side of my sweater, I'm going to have about 5 centimeters here where it's pretty relatively flat. And if I need to start decreasing before that, so once again, thinking ahead, you're going to think ahead to where you're going to change color and what's the measurement between your cat's neck and where the rib band is placed. Okay, so you just need to have, that's a great measurement to have, that measurement from the neck to where the rib band falls. So I'm going to continue on with mine, just working 1 half double crochet in each of these chains along, and then I'm going to continue along all the way to the other side, and I'm going to not increase or decrease for all the rows that I continue on my belly band, which, like I said, is about 5 rows. And then I'm going to start to decrease, and I'll be decreasing at the beginning and end of each row because I want to decrease quite rapidly. Okay, up over the shoulder blades area. I want to decrease it to the where I'm starting the. Let me actually just show you again. I want to decrease it pretty rapidly to where I'm changing colour and to where the neckband's going to be. Okay, so that's just thinking ahead a little bit. But I'm going to go for these 5 rows, backwards and forwards, no increase or decrease with my half double crochets. And, of course, still adding in this centre colour change. And I'll see you once I've done that. Oh, and once you've done your first row to the belly band, just double check the measurement again. Okay, just make sure that you've got enough, you've got plenty. Okay, so we'll be adding the buttonholes on this end. So just once again, make sure that you just measure that width again, but to the end of the belly band. Make sure you've got enough length, and you can also just sort of fold it over and make sure the button is falling where you will want it to fall. Okay, so just measure so that rib circumference, make sure you've got it where you want the button to fall on the other side. So just check that out before you go too far. Okay, so I've made my rib band there, and I've worked all the way back across to the other side. Now I'm going to start decreasing here. Okay, and the decreases are the same as the increases. You can work them to what you need. Okay, so as I was saying before, it's a good idea to have that measurement from the neck to where the rib band falls, and you get to decide where you place your color change. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to decrease for some rows. So in this one, which is a smaller one than the one I'm making, I've decreased, decreased from the rib band. Let me tell you how much I've decreased there before I did my color change, because Melba's measurement from her neck, so up at her neck down to behind her back legs, is about 15 centimeters. Okay, so that's why I've this is how I've worked it out. So then I've decreased for about 5 centimeters before starting my black color. And like I said, that's entirely arbitrary, right? You can have less black here, you can have more black than what I've got here. And you'll work it out in proportion to your contrast color, so it looks like a ladybird in your eyes. Okay? But I'm going to continue working, but I'm going to start to decrease. So let's do a half double crochet decrease together, and I'll see how so this is going to be a bigger sweater, so I'll see how quickly I decrease. Again, you can decrease at the beginning and end of every row, which is probably what I'll do, at least to start with, and then I'll see how I'm going for width over the shoulder blades, see how that's wrapping. Because I don't have the cat that I'm making this for with me, I kind of have to go by some measurements. So as you probably are doing as well. So I'm going to start decreasing at the beginning and the end of each row. So obviously I'm going to end my row here, so the rib band stays. So I'm going to probably at this one here, you can mark that stitch if you want to. So I'll probably decrease at the end and also the beginning of each row, at least for a few rows. And then I'll see if I start to slow down the decreases as I slow down the increases. Okay, so you'll just chain your 1 and turn as you've been doing. And then to decrease, you'll just work 2 half double crochets in these first 2 stitches. So 1 half double crochet in these first 2 stitches. So yarn over, insert your hook, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook in the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all 5. Okay, so that's your half double crochet decrease. So and then I'm just going to work my half double crochets all the way across until I get over to here, and then I'll do a decrease here as well. And I'm going to continue decreasing for a few rows, so you go ahead and work out how you're going to do this, how you're going to decrease, how many more centimeters you want to go for in your contrast color, and I'll meet you once I've progressed a bit. Okay, so I'm at the other end of this row, my first decrease row, so I'm just going to do a decrease again with you. So yarn over, insert your hook in the first stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, and then yarn over, pull through all the loops on your hook. Okay, so I'm going to continue on with my decreases. Oh, sorry, hit the camera. I'm going to continue on with my decreases, and I'll see you shortly. Okay, and just to come back, I'm decreasing where I initially decreased in that first row of decreases. So I just wanted to show you, just be careful that you don't miss a stitch, okay? So I've got my first stitch there that I'm working into, and then I've got my next stitch there. It can just be a little bit tricky to see that last stitch, so just make sure you're not skipping that last stitch. So you can see it's starting to decrease nicely there. So I'm going to continue with my decreases at both ends of my rows, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so I'm at the place where I want to change my color to black. Now you've got 2 options when you want to do this. You can either on this row, and I haven't done it on purpose, you can work to the end of your row by working in your black and to bring it to the end and just change color here, Or you can do what I'm going to do, which is because of the contrast, you'll be able to see the black in here. So I'm not going to work that through. I'm just going to cut off a tail, one that I can weave in to secure. And I'm just going to tie on over here, okay? Like I say, just because of the contrast that I've got. So I'm actually just going to undo that last decrease. And I'll just do my decrease again in this last row. And I'll finish off that decrease with my black. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. Now what I did last time in this one, I just worked my yarn through. You can probably, I don't know if you can just see it. You can just see it poking through, but because there's a less contrast between these two colours, that worked for that one, and it might work for you. So you could, on that last row before you want to change colour, you can just work your black along to the other side. Okay. So I've done it this way just because of the contrast difference. So then you're just going to continue with your black. So I'll just turn my work. So I'm just going to continue with my decreases, starting with my black. So you go ahead and continue on until you need to change color or want to change color, and then you'll continue your decreases. If you've decreased as much as you want to, you can start to decrease more slowly, but I need to decrease a little bit more yet, so I'm going to work a few rows with some more decreases, one at each end. So yeah, I'll meet you shortly. And option here to work in your black tail end. You can either weave it down into the centerpiece, or you can start to work it in here, because it will blend in here with the black. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to continue on and decrease a few more rows, and I'll see you when we're going to start talking about adding the neckband. Okay, so yeah, the next part after decreasing here will be adding the neckband on preferably the same side as the other band. Okay, so I'll see you soon. Oh, and now you can cut off your color one tail, and we can weave that in after. Okay, see you soon. Okay, so I just wanted to check in with you. I started to decrease at the beginning and the end of the black rows, but I actually undid my work, and I've gone to just decreasing in the beginning of the row. So I just wanted to, just let you know that can sometimes happen. You can start off on one track and then realize that it's not, like, it's decreasing too quickly, or it's not decreasing quickly enough, and you might have to go back and just change what you're doing, because each cat is different, each proportions is different, and sometimes you just need to course correct a little bit. So it's just kind of the nature of making a sweater that fits your cat. So that's what I've done. So yeah, I just wanted to let you know. So I'm moving along towards where I'm going to start to chain for my neckband. So my bands are on this side. So I suspect probably what I'm going to do, and you want to start to think about this. I'm going to finish this row for sure, come back, and I'm probably going to do another 2 rows. So I've probably got another 4 rows before I'm going to start to chain for my neckband. So that's just to accommodate the measurements between the neck and this band here. Okay, so just to make sure I've got enough length between the neck and the behind the front legs here. So yeah, that's just to let you know where I'm at. Okay, so start thinking about where you're going to place your neckband, and yeah, I'll come back probably once I've done another 4 rows, and then I'll start to chain on this side for my neckband. So I'll see you soon. Okay, so I'm going to start chaining for my neckband now. So obviously you'll just chain as you did for the rib band, you'll just chain the amount that you need. And I'll just get my tape measure. So I'm making this for about a 27 centimeter neck. So I'm at about 14 there. So I'll need to chain 12, maybe 14, 15 centimeters with what I've got here. So I'm just going to repeat the process that I did for the rib band. So just go ahead and do that. You'll chain to the length that you need for the neck circumference, and then you'll just work back and forward to create your neckband in the same way you did with the rib band. And just remember to allow enough space for the button. Just check once you've done your chain, just check where the button falls on the other side where you want it to fall, or it'll be up here, but you check where the button falls. Yeah, so just basically repeat the process that you did for the other band. So I'm going to go ahead and do mine, and I'll see you soon. Okay, so just a reminder that now you're making your neckband, you won't be decreasing. You won't be decreasing, because you want to have that same sort of flat area like you did for the rib area, so you can apply your, sew your button on, and also just have that flat area for the band to come against. Now that's not set in stone. If you didn't want to have that flat area here, if you want to continue decreasing, you certainly can, but just make sure that you have allowed for that in your chaining of your neckband. So I'm going to recommend that you just flatten it out here so you don't continue decreasing. You just go backwards and forwards for the width that you want for your neckband. But yeah, that's just a reminder, okay? So probably best just to flatten it out here. Okay, so I'll see you soon. Okay, so finished the neckband there, and the neckband is 4 rows, for me anyway, is 4 rows wide, so it's slightly narrower than the belly band, and that's how I want mine. You can have your bands at any width. You just want to make sure that your button is accommodated by the band. Okay, so we've pretty much finished there, so we're just going to make the buttonholes and finish off the project by making the spots and sewing on the buttons and weaving in the ends. But we can continue and make the buttonhole on this side, and we just have to tie on and do it for the other band as well. So you'll have your button with you, and you just want to single crochet so it'll depend entirely on the size of your button, right? So I've single crocheted back into that stitch just to bring me around the corner a little. I'm going to chain 3, and then I'm going to single crochet back on the other side, and I'm just going to check that my button fits through there nicely. So then I can just yarn over and pull through. So you'll create the size of the buttonhole that you need, and I can just snip off that end. And then we're going to just tie on to make our buttonhole on this tie. And of course, actually, just to go back here where you changed your colour, of course you can, if you haven't done that already, you can snip off that tail, and we'll just tie on here to make our buttonhole on this side. So I'm just going to tie on to that corner. So the way I tie on is I just pull up a loop, through there, and then I just chain one to secure it. Oops, I have to do that again. So if you've got a different way to tie on than what I do, then of course just feel free to do that. And then I just tighten those ends, and I'm going to put another single crochet for this one because this band is wider than the other one. And actually what I'm going to do, sorry, I'm just going to back up. I'm just going to put a single crochet where I tied on, then a single crochet next to that, and then I'm going to chain my 3 because I know that's the size I need for my button, and I'm going to put 2 single crochets on the other side as well. So you just want to work out, you know, how you want your buttonhole to be. Let's just double check. Yep, fine on this side too. And then I'll just yarn over, pull through, and snip off that tail. So before we make the spots, let's just weave in one of these tail ends. But I'm kind of going to assume that you know how to do this. So I'll just thread my needle with those two because I've got a double strand. I'll just thread with both. And I'm going to sew into the back. So I think for, yeah, this is going to be, that's going to be my front. Okay, so I'm just going to sew it into the back area. And just weave it down into your stitches where you can secure it nice and tightly. And it's a good idea, if you're securing it well, it's a good idea to double back. So I'm just going to go a little bit further down just to make sure these ends are nice and secure. And just be careful, the thing with weaving in your ends is that you just don't pull too tightly and misshape your work. And then I'm going to double back, and obviously you don't double back exactly where you've come, just skip to the side or jump over that last loop and secure your tail. And you can go back again if you want to, but for me that feels nice and firm in there. And you'll just snip off the excess. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for all my tail ends. But first, let's just show you how to make the spots. Okay, so you get to decide how big you want your spots to be. So on this last one that I made, I did them just with single strand of black. So they turned out this size, and this is a smaller, quite a bit smaller jacket than or sweater than what I've made today. And on here they were about 2.5 centimeters. So I think I'm going to make them, because this jacket, this sweater is slightly bigger, I'm actually going to make the spots slightly bigger as well. Okay, so you get to decide that. You can, you know, make them however big you want them to be. So I'm actually going to keep my double strand for this sweater. So you'll just make a magic ring, as you did at the beginning, and we're just going to increase in the round to create just a disc. Okay, and like I said, you get to decide how big you want the spots to be. So I'm going to chain 1, and I'm going to put 6 half double crochets into the ring. So that's 1. You don't need to watch me do this. So what I'll do is I'll pause here and I'll put my 6 half double crochets into the ring, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I have my 6 half double crochets in the ring, and I'm just going to close up the ring, pull the tail, and then I will slip stitch into the first stitch. Now, if you want to stop here just at 1 round, you want smaller spots, maybe you want more of them, you can. Otherwise, let's increase again. So it's just, like I said, a simple increase in the round. So I've got 6 stitches. I'm going to place two half double crochets in each of the stitches. And for me, I always start in the stitch that I've slip stitched into, but you can start in the next one if you want to. But for me, I just start in the same stitch that I slip stitched into. I'm going to place 2 half double crochets in there, and then 2 half double crochets in each of the stitches until I have a total of 12 stitches. So once again, I'm going to finish that off camera, and that will give me my spots. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with 2 half double crochets in each stitch. If you wanted to, you could increase in the round again if you want you know, extra big spots. Yeah, I'll talk about that in a moment, but I'm going to finish off this round 2 half double crochets in each stitch. So I'll see you soon. Okay, so I've got my 12 stitches in the round, and I'm just slip stitching to join. Now, like I said, if you want to go for another round, so you would chain 1, 2 half double crochets in the first stitch, and like I said, I start in the stitch that I've slip stitched into, so 2. In the next one, you'd place 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 until you have 18 stitches. Okay, so 2 in one stitch, 1 in the next, 2, 1, 2, 1. But for me, that's going to be big enough. And just to give you an idea of how big these ones are today, they're about 3.5, so they're about a centimetre larger, which I think is going to work for this sweater. So you'll yarn over and pull through when you've got your size of your spots, and leave a long tail for sewing. Okay, so you want to have enough tail that you can sew your spot onto the sweater. Okay, so I'll leave a nice long tail, and you'll go ahead and make as many as spots that you want. So you can have lots of smaller spots, fewer larger spots. It's entirely up to you, but I'm going to make 6 of the same as this, and I'll see you once I've done that. Okay, so I've been through and woven in all of my ends and made all of my spots, and now it's just a matter of sewing on our spots. So you'll decide where you want them to be. I'm going to do something similar to what I did with my previous spots. So you can see on this one, and I'm sorry that we're so panned out, I've got 2 at the top here, 2 in the center, and 2 at the bottom. So I'm going to do, you know, something kind of similar to that. So I'll just work out where I want my spots to be, and I'm just tucking my tails underneath. I'm not going to bother to weave those in. I'm just going to tuck them underneath the spots when I sew them on. You could weave them in if you want them out of the way. And then I'm just going to sew, and I'm going to use both of my tail ends. I could just use one, but I think I'll use both. The other option is just to tuck one of those tails in with the others, and then just sew on. But that's just me because I'm using double strands, but you may or may not be. So you'll sew on your spots where you want them to be, and you know, do this as neatly as you can. So let's just do one together. So I'm going to put this one kind of out to the side here. And you know, you can pin them on or however you want to do it. I just tend to kind of eyeball it, but that's just me. And I'll just make sure all of my tails are tucked in there. And I just so the way I do this is I just take a loop that's kind of just underneath the spot. Okay, so it's kind of hidden. And then I come up into the side of the spot like that. And then I just work my way around. So I'll come sort of underneath, lift up a loop, and then come up through one of the loops on the edge of the spot. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go ahead and sew on all my spots. So one underneath there, and then just come up into the side. And just keep making sure all the tails are tucked under. So yeah, you'll sew on all your spots wherever you want them to be. And obviously on the other side you'll mirror where you've put your one on this side. So what I tend to do is I do all of one side and then I mirror it on the other side. Like I lay them out on one side so I've got them where I want them to be, and then I mirror on the other side. But you know, you can do it however you want to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew on all of my spots, and then all we've got to do is sew on our buttons, which is just, you know, as simple as sewing on a button. So I'll come back to you when I'm ready to sew on my buttons. I'll just work my way through sewing on all these spots. So you do the same and I'll meet you shortly. Okay, so once you've sewn on your spot, I just want to show you how I finish this off. So I'm back around the other side, and I just put my needle through and out the other side. And then I'll just snip off the excess. But you can finish off however you want. If you wanted to put your needle through and just weave in at the back of the spot, you can do that too. However works for you. But I just go through once. You could go through a couple of times if you wanted to really secure that, but for me, I just go through and I snip off this end. But like I said, if you wanted to, you could go back as well. Just make sure that's nice and secure in there. Maybe it's a good idea to do that actually. So there we go. Just push my needle. So you need kind of a sharp darning needle for this. There we go. And I'll just come through the other side. Just make sure you don't misshape your spot by pulling too tightly. And then I'll just snip off that excess. And there's my first spot done. So 1 down, 5 to go, and I'll see you once I've done that. Okay, so I've sewn on my buttons as well as finishing off sewing on my spots. So just when you sew on your buttons, obviously you'll measure the circumference that you want and make sure you place them in the right place. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed this fun tutorial. It's just, you know, it's a little bit of fun. It's practical. This is a warm sweater. It's an easy fit sweater and easy for your cat to move in, but it's also got this cute detail of being a little beetle or ladybird. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it. I really enjoyed making this one. It was, yeah, kind of fun to put together, and my husband is an entomologist, so it's very fitting for our family. So yeah, please send along your photos to catventurers.community@gmail.com, or you can tag us on social media at catventurous.crochet. I'd love to see your photos. So yeah, hope you've enjoyed it and hope to catch you soon. Thanks very much. Bye. Bunny Kicks, you ready to go? You ready to go? You ready to go? Thanks, Melba. Good girl.